Welcome to the Q Podcast.
Q is about conversation.
If we're really concerned about ending poverty, we've got to be more concerned about creating justice.
Our cultural products as Christians need to both defy and resonate with the culture.
And God's doing amazing things. His church is expanding, his church is growing.
It's not what's the purpose of my life, it's what is the purpose that's been assigned.
Stay curious, think well, advance good. This is Q.
Welcome to another edition of the Q Podcast. Today we are talking about design. So some of you listening, I know maybe you're designers, maybe just appreciate design, but either way, we're talking about design today because we know design matters. That's the name of the talk you're going to get to hear from Danae Dougherty, why design matters. And what we love about this talk is it helps us think not just about design, then maybe the way you're thinking, which is print design or the way we see it in pieces or commercials or that sort of thing, graphic design. But what Danae's going to talk to us about is understanding space. You know, a study by the Design Council found that companies who emphasize design in their business dealings perform 200% better on the stock exchange than those who don't. So it's not just about graphics and colors, it's about aesthetics in space. And so Danae will speak from her background in designing spaces that create environments for real connection. That's what Danae cares about, is how do we create the kind of environments that build relationships, that allow people to connect, but also where we're thoughtful about the medium. So the literal things we buy, the things we put in our spaces, what is the story behind those and why does that matter? You know, some people today think, man, if I can get it cheaper, I'll just get it cheaper. But they don't always understand the impact and the sourcing and where those things are coming from. So you're going to get to hear this complex and interesting story and perspective from Danae Dougherty about why design matters. Danae possesses extensive knowledge of all the project phases from concept to construction, so she really gets into design from the most granular of details. But she also has had experience in retail and hospitality, high-density housing, education, civic design, and she's a part of a great company called Visioneering, whose tagline is to design destinations that lift the spirit now and forever. And so as you listen to this talk, I want you to consider, how do you think about design? Are you serious about it? Have you really contemplated some of this at a level that maybe it requires, especially as a person of faith, a person who's wanting to advance the common good in our society? So let's just listen in with that perspective and we'll see what you think.
So 2 years ago, my husband and I got married, and as part of that combining of households, we had to evaluate all of our things and decide what was going to stay and what was going to go. And of course, we mutually decided all of his stuff would go and we'd just keep what I owned. But after additional compromise, as part of that purge, I threw out 30 pounds of clothing and a handful of IKEA dressers. You all know the ones I'm talking about with the bottoms sagging out because you've piled so much clothes into them. So I'm looking around at all these mountains, these piles of things, and I'm just looking at them thinking, why did I ever buy these things? But not just why did I buy them, evaluating that I had zero attachment to them. They literally held zero value for me. As a designer, I had been asleep in making responsible design choices for myself. I needed a wake-up call, and this light bulb moment catalyzed in me a desire to evaluate the intersection between design and consumption and led me to question how I could be a more responsible consumer and designer. As consumers, we're voting with our wallets for stylish, low-cost convenience in a time where quantity is valued over quality. Our demand for cheaper goods creates a market of limited value. As designers, we have responded to this market with fast fashion, fast design, fast architecture, creating objects of the moment that are not expected to have long lifespans. Our treasures have shorter and shorter shelf lives than ever before, and the emerging market of fast design reflects this. For me, design matters because it's an expression of the collective values that all of us exhibit. And the current landscape of design indicates that what we value most is what I call single-serve design. It's a linear approach to design and consumption where we use objects once and then we throw them away. There is no value beyond its initial use. It is essentially the K-cup philosophy of a one-and-done approach to design and consumption. And in case you were wondering what 13 billion represented, that's the number of K-cups that went to the landfill last year alone. We can see evidence of single-serve design in fashion, furniture, and architecture. Fast fashion chains such as Forever 21 and H&M are packed to the ceilings with low-cost disposable clothing. After a couple of wears, that ironic t-shirt that you had to have makes its way into the dumpster or a secondhand store bag to make room for the next clever slogan. Americans are throwing away 70 pounds of clothing per person a year. And while we may temporarily feel altruistic about the donations we're making to secondhand stores, the reality is the network of secondhand stores that exist cannot keep up with our consumption yearly. So everything we're donating, only 15 to 20% goes to the floor. The rest is going out the back door to be in a landfill. Most of us have a love-hate relationship with this place. We end up with too much hardware in the box or not enough, and I'm sure they single-handedly support the Allen wrench market. But IKEA is the largest retail furniture provider in the world. We all drank the Kool-Aid, we're eating the meatballs, and I have to acknowledge the brilliance of a retailer that designed a store we literally never have to leave. In fact, if they didn't close, we wouldn't go home. But that experience, it's not for your comfort. The design of that store is curated for maximum consumption. What they don't advertise is in the US, furniture accounts for 9.8 million tons of landfill waste a year. And as IKEA continues to flood the market with fast, low-cost furniture, the landfill waste is piling up in record numbers. And we need to be honest with ourselves. Are any of us really going to repurpose or fix a table that cost us $7.99 to buy when we can just throw it away and buy a new one? The scale of these problems seem insurmountable, and honestly, I don't have the answers to all of them, and I can't provide them today for you. But what I can say is design can provide answers to these problems if designers and creators take a long view and move away from single-serve design methodologies and towards a closed-loop approach that focuses on enduring value. Closing the loop means that we need to design for lifetime value, where objects are upcycled and transformed into something else over and over and over again. But as consumers, we also need to understand value beyond the convenience and short-term monetary cost. Within the context of architecture, I've been wrestling with the concept of enduring value throughout my academic and professional career. The relics of our consumption at the scale of architecture are just too substantial to ignore. The architectural term for waste of this magnitude is brownfield. Brownfields are single-serve buildings and sites abandoned of value and purpose. They're the contaminated industrial sites, former gas stations, fracking sites, and landfills, and they create black holes in our suburbs and cities. You may have noticed these disposable boarded up vacant sites in your neighborhood. The EPA estimates in the US alone there are 480,000 of them. Becoming so common, they are now just part of our landscape, our community fabric. But we can close the loop on brownfield sites by choosing to consume and create differently. In order to close the loop, these sites need to be resurrected through decontamination and mitigation efforts so that they can be redeemed and repurposed. This is not convenient, it is not fast, and it's not cheap. It demands a reframing of our values. For developers, entrepreneurs, and nonprofits, choosing brownfield redevelopment blesses communities blighted by these sites, and it can facilitate stronger relationships with federal and local representatives by closing the loop and creating enduring value in our communities. By participating in the resurrection of these sites, we can be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. As a designer with Visioneering Studios, I've had the incredible opportunity to participate in imagining what sites like this could be. In the context of Los Angeles, California, an urban site that we reimagined, it was a former gas station site, is since become a vertical green space and recreation center in an inner city severely lacking both. In Northern California, we imagined what one of these brownfield sites could be transformed into in the suburban context. We partnered with a local church where they took a dump site and upcycled it into a community center and worship space. And just because I'm an incredible fan of these projects, in Atlanta, this is Atlantic Station. This is a former site of a steel mill that has been upcycled into a live, work, play environment where retail happens, community happens, and it is a place for 10,000 homes. And finally, one of my most favorite projects is in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. This is a former steel mill. It's now since been retermed Bethlehem Station, and it's been converted into a community space event center in Greenbelt. Within the context of my profession, this is how we close the loop in architecture. This is how we redeem previously disposed of land and spaces and upcycle it into something better. This is how we dismantle single-serve design. As individuals and a society, we've been eating from the table of convenience. The culture of diminishing value is here, but we can flip the script and vote for enduring value by asking these questions. As individual consumers and creators, where can you be responsible and close the loop? And as a faith community, how can we redefine value beyond monetary cost and convenience? Today, I invite you to be awake with me in doing both. God bless.
Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing Danae's perspective. You can look at this talk online where she references several slides at qideas.org, where you can actually watch this talk, you can share it with friends. And then, it was interesting to me, after this talk happened, I was talking to a couple who had just recently gotten married, and they had bought a new home, and they said to me, you know what, I've been so impacted by this talk by Danae that we decided that everything we purchase in our home is going to have a depth to it. It's going to have a story. It's going to be properly sourced. We're not just going to go for the cheapest thing that we can buy. We're going to actually be thoughtful about it. And she said, and so therefore this has taken a lot longer to decorate this house. It's a little more expensive, but it's just been a powerful experience to not just consume, not just get what we can get, but to actually put a lot of thought and intentionality in it. And she said they've loved it. As a couple, it's been great. It's been uniting, and it's been a fun project. And so I wonder for you, was there anything that came out of this? Did this spark anything for you about the next thing you decide you're going to purchase, how you're going to think about it, and how we as Christians can be a part of the solutions in even these kinds of conversations? We believe God cares about this. He cares about design. He cares about beauty and order. He cares about sourcing and where things are coming from and the stories that they're telling. And so how do we participate in that? How can we be a part of creating great conversation because we've taken the time to be people who are intentional with everything that we do, everything that we purchase, and the decisions that we're making? So, and if you've enjoyed this podcast, just know there's several more episodes that you can go back and listen to. Get this in your feed. Hopefully make this a part of at least a weekly rhythm where you're thinking about these kinds of subjects and topics you wouldn't normally maybe seek out. But through Q, we're curating them for you. We're going to put them in front of you and help you be more exposed and aware of what's happening in the culture around us.